you're doing something wrong. Like these foul calls are ticky tacky, right? Like they're questionable calls, but they're still calling them on you. So you're obviously doing something wrong. But I don't know. I want to move on to our last topic and make sure we have enough time to do this one because I'm excited for this one. And it may take a little bit longer. Hopefully, we can squeeze this into 10 minutes. But I want to, for our last topic, I want to hand out some mid-season awards, right? We've reached now the halfway point, or just about the halfway point in the 2020-21 season. So we figured the best way to celebrate it is to give out some awards during the season. So, I mean, we have 4 different awards to give out. So we'll start with the first one, which is Offensive Player of the Year. So, Ryan, who is your Offensive Player of the Year? I should say of the midseason so far.
It's simply been Benedict Matheran. I mean, he's had 8 points or more in the last 6 games, and he's had at least 2 3-pointers in the last 6 games, and it's averaging 12 points and 5 rebounds over across the season. And he's just every game. I mean, even last night he didn't have a spectacular performance, but you just see that like he's more consistent. Like every night, like for example, like if he had if he came out and had 5 points, I'd be surprised at this point. I expect him to score over 10 points pretty much. I mean, and when his shots falling, I mean, he's pretty much unstoppable at this point. And I think the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, I like Matheran a lot, but I think it's hard not to ignore what James Akinjo has done this season. So he's my Offensive Player of the Year. I know it's kind of hard to kind of say that right now because he had 0 points against USC and he only had 8 points against Oregon State, but I still think he's the offensive MVP. It feels like forever ago, but you have to remember how good of a scorer he was at the beginning of the year, right? He scored 19 in his first game as a Wildcat. Then he had 22 in the win over Colorado where he went 5 or 7 from 3. There was also that game where he went 14 for 14 from the free throw line. It was a shame that UCLA game was so bad because he had 25 and hit 4 threes in that one too. So I think he's shown up. But the most impressive thing about Akinjo is that he stepped up to the challenge in the big games against the top point guards in the league. I can't remember. I actually think it was the Colorado game. It was, we were talking, somebody from the media asked James Akinjo during the Colorado game about McKinley Wright and asked, how are you matching up against McKinley Wright or whatever. And he basically said he was like, yeah, he's good, but myself and the rest of the guys on this team and the rest of the guards on this team are a lot better. And I was kind of just I think we're all like, okay, dude, yeah, sure, right? McKinley Wright's a great player. You shouldn't really shrug him off like that. But he balled out in that game. James Akinjo, I think he had 22 in that game. Like I said, 5 of 7 from 3. He had 25 in the UCLA game against Tiger Campbell, one of the other better guards in this league. 24 points last night against Remy Martin. So he really has proved against some of the top point guards in this conference that he's right up there. As one of the top guards in this conference. Every game that they played, he stepped up. So, I mean, and to be doing all of that offensively while almost averaging 6 assists a game, it's super impressive. You have to give him credit. So he's my Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think he's been great. I mean, at points, his upside's a lot more than probably any other player on this offense. As you said, he said many games over 20, over 15. But I just couldn't reward him for his inconsistency. I mean, just because he is more coming to the year, had more upside than a guy like Matheran to me. I mean, and coming as a transfer and having some college experience. So, I mean, besides last night, I've been a little disappointed over the last about few weeks with him.
Yeah, the inconsistency is fair, but I want to move on. What about defensive MVP? I know this team, this might be a little bit of a hard question because this team doesn't play a whole lot of defense, but try your best and give me your defensive MVP so far.
I mean, I think there's only one real option, Christian Coloco. I mean, I don't think he should be, the way I've talked about him, and I agree, I don't think he should be rewarded for anything. So, I mean, I wouldn't give anyone this award, as you just said, on this team, as not a lot of guys deserve it. I mean, but he's averaging 1.5 blocks a game, which is pretty good. I mean, he's had last 2 games, he's had 3 blocks in each game, which is really good. I mean, but I just cannot. I mean, I know it's about defense, but the offense, it just flashes out on the page to me. I mean, he's had 1 10-point game in 14 games, which is just, that's unacceptable, man, as I've said. But I mean, he's clearly the best defender and has the most defensive upside. I mean, all the other guys, like, some decent defenders, but, nobody has them, like the blocks or the stats and that presence inside like he does.
Yeah, I think the easy answer is Koloko, and I think I can't give this award to anybody really because this team is not a very good defensive team. But I do want to give some credit to Dalen Terry. I know he's averaging 1 steal and a half a block a game, so he's doing it both on defense right now. He's a guy that can guard anyone on the court 1 through 4. He isn't exactly putting up as many points offensively as people thought he might, but he's still getting it done defensively, I think. And I know the blocks and steals aren't a direct correlation of how good of defense you actually play, but he's putting up both of those stats. He's had 10 different games this year with at least a block or a steal. So he's making plays. He had 3 blocks against NAU, which is even more impressive of a stat for a non-big man. So I mean, like I said, it's hard to give out a defensive MVP. I think Koloko is the easy answer if he didn't get into foul trouble every freaking game. But I think Dalen Terry has done a good enough job to be acknowledged for this award. So what about freshman of the year? This one, I think, was at first a very obvious answer, but after last night might be a little bit more of a challenging award to hand out. But who is your freshman of the midseason so far?
I think this is easy, and I think not just freshman of the year, this is my most valuable player on the team. I'm going to go about and say that, and it's Julius Tabelas. He's the most consistent player on this team, and that's just a fact. As we've talked a lot of these guys are inconsistent here and there, whatever, but like they've played 14 games. In 11 of those 14 games, he scored at least 8 or more points. And like he's averaging 11 points and 6 rebounds in the season, but he's really came into his own over the last 8 to 10 games about, and really like gets back to what Sean Miller said, I think it was after the Oregon State game, and he said now they're looking to get Tabelas the ball in the post and get him his good looks, which earlier in the season, they weren't, focusing on getting Julius Tabelas looks. But, yeah, I mean, it was close between him and Matheran, but I'll get into him a little later. But, yeah, I mean, to me, he's the easy answer.
Yeah, I'm going to split this one up. I really just cannot decide between Benedict Matheran and Julius Tabelas. I think Matheran needs to get credit, for what he's done. We've already talked about last week about how he's a legit NBA prospect, or he might be at least. I mean, the kid's just kind of doing it all right now. He was productive again last night, scoring 13 points and 5 rebounds. He also had 36 minutes, too. So for him to be in there for almost the entire game just shows you how confident Sean Miller is in him, especially for a freshman. So, I mean, it hasn't just been these last few games, too. I mean, he's been putting up numbers in the starting lineup and also on the bench early on in the season. I mean, he had 12 points in his first game, 15 against CSU Bakersfield. Both of those games he was coming off the bench. So just being able to score points like that off the bench is really, really important. But, I mean, you're right. Julius Tabelas really does deserve credit for his rookie season. I mean, he has yet to actually record a double-double with this season, but he's had a bunch of games with 9 or 8 rebounds, so close enough, right? But, obviously that tip-in last night was amazing, but, he really has been Arizona's most consistent player, and I definitely think he's deserving of this award, but I also can't ignore Matheran. So I'm making this one a co-freshman of the year, and I'm giving it to both of them.
Yeah, I guess we could get into that last award. So you could go first. Who do you got for the best performance of the year?
Yeah, so for my individual performance of the year, this one was actually really tough to pick because it's so funny because Sean Miller had, I think, only one player in his career have over 30 points scored for him, and that was DeAndre Ayton. But now this season, he's got 3 in one season. So, like, there was that game, Jamal Baker's game, that 33 points against NAU, where he hit 7 for 9 threes. There was Tabelas' 31-point game against USC, and then, of course, Benedict Matheran's coming out party against Oregon State. But this one was really hard, and I honestly still don't know if I, have made up my decision yet. I'm really torn between Jamal Baker's 33 points against NAU and Matheran's 31 points against Oregon State. I mean, I really enjoyed that game from Jamal Baker because, if I remember correctly, he was like 66 from halftime against 3. I mean, the dude literally did not miss in the first half. It was just crazy to watch. And it was early on in the season. That was a lot of fun. I don't care who it's against. Going 7 for 9 from 3 is impressive against any team, right? And then, of course, Benedict Matheran's game was nuts too. 31 and 8 rebounds. I mean, 10 of 12 shooting and 6 of 7 from three. Like, I think that for me, I think is my individual performance of the year. Just being able to do all of that as a freshman. I think that was really the game where we were all sitting here asking ourselves, is this kid going to the NBA next season? Like, he was really playing that well. It was crazy to see. So it's really tough for me, but I'm going to give this award to Benedict Matheran. 31-point performance against Oregon State. What about you?
I mean, you just took it from me, but as that it is Benedict Matheran, but I'm going to take it even a little further because this wasn't just the best performance for the Wildcats this year. This was the best Wildcat. This was the best performance from a Wildcat in the last 2 years, taking it back from last year too. I mean, that was like out of the last 2 years. I mean, all those guys. 3 guys picked in the top 45 picks in the NBA, and then this year a bunch of 4-star players. I mean, this was that 31.8 rebound game was the first game that I watched, and I was like, that guy right there is a for sure NBA player. And I didn't feel that after any game last year, for sure. So 100%. I mean, that game. I mean, I've gone back and watched it again. I mean, that performance was just elite and just. He was playing on a whole different level.
Yeah, I mean, I shout out to